Hook denemen tamansa. When your partner goes quiet and you fill that silence with worst thoughts, something is happening. You're not just having a moment together right now. It's being answered by words. It's being answered by what you keep doing every single day. Promise. There are 7 small behaviors neuroscience says are the load-bearing walls, not the grand gestures, not the vacations, or the carefully constructed moments. The daily things, the invisible things that actually build lasting love. At the end, we'll get to the most important finding from research. One behavior that separated couples who stayed together with 94% accuracy. First, you need to understand what is actually happening in your brain, because it's not what anyone tells you it is at all. Point 1. You remember a small thing about their day without being reminded? You're making coffee, they're on their phone in the other room. Half your attention is on the day ahead, and you still ask, not because you have to, but because you remembered that thing, that meeting, that conversation with their mom, that worry they didn't finish. Have you ever felt the difference between being asked about something generic versus having someone actually remember something about you without being reminded at all? That feeling is serotonin flooding your brain right now, creating safety. That's the brain recognizing I exist in someone's mind when not present. Most people assume remembering is just courtesy, but it's not that. Every time you recall something specific about another person's inner life, you're activating mirror neurons in your own brain-building neural pathways. John Gottman, who spent 40 years watching couples, called these bids. The person remembers, the person asks, that's the bid for connection. When you answer that bid, the brain interprets this as significant. This person is tracking me, seeing me as important enough to hold. Sue Johnson found this simple act answers the deepest nervous system question. Are you paying attention to me specifically, not to us, but me? Remembering is proof that what matters to them became important to you. Point 2, you sit with them in quiet without trying to fix anything. They're quieter than usual, something is sitting on them heavy. You notice it not because they announced it, but because you learned the difference between their regular quiet and their heavy quiet now. Instead of waiting for them to say something or offering solutions, you just sit down next to them without speaking or fixing. You just don't leave them alone in that heavy moment. You've probably felt this yourself at some point before now. Someone in the room with you not trying to make it better. Just there creating that landing feeling when someone chooses your discomfort. Researchers call this responsive presence, and what it does is remarkable. When someone sits with you without agenda, without pressure to perform, your prefrontal cortex can actually quiet down and threat detection relaxes. Sue Johnson found this single act sends a clear limbic signal. You are not alone in this. Your struggle is being witnessed. You don't have to manage it by yourself right now. That's not passivity. That's the highest form of presence possible. The brain doesn't remember the words you said in that moment. The brain remembers the choice you made to stay with them. Mid-CTA, if you felt this kind of presence or realize this is missing, hit like and subscribe. It helps us reach people trying to understand what love actually looks like when you strip away the noise. Point 3, you bring up something they mentioned 3 days ago and half forgot. A meeting they were dreading, a difficult phone call coming up soon. A project they were uncertain about, not a crisis, just small. It was one of those worries that gets mentioned, then eclipsed. They've probably forgotten they even said it to you at all. And then 3 days later, you bring it up without prompting. You don't wait to be asked, you mention it because you remember. Following up on small things sends a specific neurochemical signal now. It says what matters to you has been adopted by me. Attachment research calls this felt security, and it's powerful deeply. When your partner consistently circles back to things that worry you, the brain interprets it as I am not alone carrying this. What concerned me has not disappeared just because I stopped talking. Someone else is holding it with me right now today. Helen Fisher at Rutgers found something remarkable in her studies. Deeply, long-term couples deeply in love showed sustained brain activation in reward, but the activation was paired with something unexpected called calm focus. Not obsession, not desperate focus, but calm focused attention on partner. That calm attention is built entirely through these small daily acts. Following up, remembering, showing that something they mentioned lives in mind. This is love operating at its most honest, not grand, but constant. Point 4, you look up when they walk into a room consistently. They come into the room, you're fully occupied, reading, working, thinking, and you look up not because anything happened or noise, just because they're there and their existence registers to you. This is such a small thing, it's easy to miss profundity. But the nervous system doesn't miss it at all, ever. When someone consistently acknowledges your presence without you demanding it, the brain registers this as the most basic form of recognition. Robert Levinson at Berkeley studied couples across decades and found this: the single most accurate predictor wasn't conflict resolution or sexual compatibility. It was positive sentiment override the tendency to interpret actions charitably. Positive sentiment override doesn't come from nowhere, it comes from mattering, being looked up for being seen as significant enough to interrupt. When that looking up stops when you enter and they remain absorbed, the brain begins to ask, do I register to them anymore? Am I significant enough to interrupt their focus right now? The answer the nervous system receives is not always conscious fully, but it's always felt deep in the body, keeping score. Pair bond researchers studying prairie voles who mate for life found sustained pair bonds depend almost entirely on proximity-seeking visual contact. When researchers disrupted these daily visual acknowledgements, bonds degraded within days, not weeks, days, showing how fast connection erodes without attention. The human brain inherited this same ancient requirement for recognition daily. Looking up is not a gesture, it's a neurobiological necessity. Now, point 5. You put something down when they speak to you consistently. You're in the middle of something, phone is in hand. A book is open, your attention is engaged fully somewhere else. And they start talking and you put it down quietly, not dramatically, not with sighs or comments about being interrupted now. Quietly, the thing goes down, your eyes come up, you listen. Notice what this does. It says without words, they are priority. They are not competing with your life. They are the reason. But here's what people don't realize about what happens when stops. It doesn't happen all at once. Gottman called it parallel lives. Two people sharing a space, a schedule, maybe even affection still, but no longer making the small daily gestures that say presence. The phone stays in hand while they talk, show continues unchanged. And the person on the receiving end doesn't feel abandoned exactly. They feel something harder to name and harder to fix now. They feel like furniture, present, assumed, no longer truly seen anymore. When positive social engagement drops below a threshold, the brain registers the relationship itself as a mild chronic stressor, elevating cortisol levels. The body keeps score, even when the mind is telling everything fine. The ones who miss this, who stop putting things down, attention drifts. They're not failing, they're just reading the wrong signals, entirely wrong. Years later, people look back and realize the erosion happened quietly. Putting something down is not politeness. It's a daily declaration clearly. This person's words are not interruptions in your life. They are point 6. You name something true and specific about who they actually are. Not a compliment, exactly, not you're great or I love you. Something more specific that lets them know you've been paying attention. You notice the specific way they handle uncertainty with quiet resolve. The particular kind of humor that comes when they're nervous, deflecting. The way they show care that's different from how anyone else does. And you name it, you say the true thing you've observed. Sue Johnson, founder of emotionally focused therapy, found this deeply matters. The question beneath every interaction, every argument, every silence is this: do you really know me, not know about me, but know me? The specific configuration of fears and strengths and contradictions that make up. When you name something true and specific, you answer that with evidence. You're saying, I have been paying attention closely enough to see I know you not as a role or partner, but person. This is the rarest gift one human can give another now. The experience of being truly seen for who you actually are. Harriet Lerner calls this bearing witness to someone's true self always. When someone bears witness to who you actually are, not performance, not who you're trying to become, but who you are now. Something shifts in the attachment system deeply and permanently shifts now. The nervous system receives the message there is someone who knows the real me and chooses to stay anyway, with full knowledge. That message rewires something fundamental in how you experience safety deeply, but it only works if the thing you name is true. If it's observed, earned through attention, not offered as flattery, empty. Years from now, the ones who missed this, who stopped seeing, will realize they weren't failing, they were just slowly forgetting how. Point 7, you do the thing before they ask for it consistently. They need something and you do it before question emerges at all. Before they have to ask you, notice they were running low. So you picked it up, you saw the thing was broken. So you fixed it, you understood they were overwhelmed by grocery list. So you went before they asked because you already knew needs, because you have watched them closely enough to understand before voicing. This is love operating at its most fluent when needs language. Attachment theorists call this anticipatory caregiving, and it's one of most powerful signals the nervous system can receive from a partner ever, because here's what it means. Neurologically, this person doesn't just respond. This person knows me well enough to meet my needs before vulnerable. There's no negotiation, no keeping score of who asked for what. Just the quiet knowledge that your needs matter enough to anticipate. Robert Levinson's decades of research identified this anticipatory behavior was inseparable from positive sentiment. Override the tendency to interpret ambiguous actions charitably always. When your partner consistently does things before you ask, brain interprets. All their actions charitably delay means busy, not that they don't care. A forgetfulness means they're overwhelmed, not that you don't matter anymore. When these daily acts are present partners, read each other generously. When they erode, when people stop anticipating and start waiting, asked, the same neutral act begins to be read as neglect, abandonment. But here's what the research really reveals about these 7 things. The 7 things are not 7 separate behaviors at all, ever. They are 7 expressions of one core commitment to keep choosing. The commitment to keep choosing someone on ordinary days when feeling alone, would forgive you for doing nothing when you could stop. When the relationship would continue without these small acts still surviving. The commitment to keep choosing them daily in small, quiet ways. Final line, they're not staying because love is easy at all, ever. They're staying because you daily in small, quiet ways convinced nervous system that you will be there for them again tomorrow.